Hey everybody, my name is Kristen Mackintosh and I am the happy lawyer here at Schweitzer and Associates. And this month's webinar is Spring into Action, Preventing Scams Against the Elderly. So if you stay tuned to this, you will learn all about scams that target the elderly and how you can potentially prevent those scams. But first, a little bit about me. As I said, I am Kristen Mackintosh, and yes, you heard me correctly. I am a lawyer and I am happy. The reason I'm happy is because I love what I am doing, which is helping clients work out unique personalized estate plans. I spend as much time with my clients as they need because it's very important to me to make sure that they understand their estate plans and also that I gather all the information that I need in order to develop a personalized estate plan. In today's presentation, we're going to be talking about why seniors are at risk for scams, what are the most common scams targeting seniors, and steps you can take to avoid the scammers. So first, before we get into talking about the scams, let's talk a little bit about financial exploitation of the elderly. Unfortunately, the elderly are often exploited financially, and it's not always by strangers. Sometimes it's by their own family members. As you can see, about 60% of the individuals who abuse or financially abuse the elderly are the elderly's own adult children. More than 60% of those who are financially exploited are female. African American victims tend to be higher than white victims in the realm of exploitation of the elderly, and nearly half of the victims are at least 80 years old. So why are seniors targeted by scammers? Well, the population in the United States is overall aging. According to one survey from 2016, people over 50 currently hold about 85% of this country's wealth. Also, unfortunately, is that the elderly tend to be more trusting, which makes them an ideal target for scammers. So let's get into some of the specific reasons why the elderly are targeted. Typically, the elderly have more savings. Yep, that was a cash register. Older Americans will typically have saved up a lot more money than a younger person just starting out who's graduated from college. Seniors are typically retired, which means they generally have enough money to live on. They don't tend to have a lot of credit card debt. So these reasons make a senior a much better target than, say, a 22-year-old who's just graduated from college, who has accumulated student loan debt and possibly other credit card debt. That's not going to be someone the scammers are going to want to target because they're not going to be able to, one, get money out of the younger person, and two, they're definitely not going to be able to take out any credit cards in that person's name, most likely. Also, on the same token, seniors, because they have lived longer, tend to have a more lengthy credit history. And not only do they have a more lengthy credit history, they generally have a much higher credit rating because of their lifetime of accumulation of credit, because they've taken out loans, they've taken out credit cards, they've paid off those debt, and they've owned houses, sold houses, and all of that goes into a person's credit history. So when you have a good credit history, you are going to be able to qualify for additional credit cards. Now, the senior's not going to necessarily want the additional credit cards, but the scammers are going to want to be able to take out those credit cards and loans in the senior's name. And by gathering the information from the elderly through the various scams, they are able to capitalize on that individual senior's good credit history rating and, take out those credit cards and loans and rack up a lot of debt at the expense of the elderly person who most likely is not aware this is happening. Another reason that seniors are more of a target for scammers is that unfortunately they tend to be more trusting. You see, seniors didn't grow up in the digital age, and because of this, they are much more used than, sorry, scratch that. Because of this, seniors tend to be more trusting of the internet when someone emails them than, say, a younger person who has grown up with the internet and who knows all about the horrors of people pretending to be other individuals. So they're going to be a younger person is going to be less likely to click on a suspicious link versus an elderly person who may not, be as savvy in this case. Also, seniors grew up in a time where neighbors helped one another. So if someone needed financial help or needed food or clothes, the other families in the community would gather and they would provide those items. So because of that, they grew up, in a very trusting, kinder world than unfortunately we live in today. Also, another reason is that seniors make a great target because they are very afraid of what others will think. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, see, a lot of seniors are either suffering from dementia or a form of Alzheimer's, or perhaps they're afraid that they are going to develop that, or that their friends and family are going to think that they are, losing their memory and maybe, starting to, develop dementia or Alzheimer's. So essentially, this causes seniors, when they are a victim of a scam, because they don't want their loved ones to judge them harshly or, give them ammunition for filing a mental incompetency claim, or, such as a guardianship for, mom and dad who obviously aren't thinking clearly and must be losing their memories because they fell victim to the scam. Because of that, they don't want to report that they have been scammed, because they don't want their children to, for lack of a better word, think that they're stupid. And unfortunately, while this is a human nature, it makes seniors an excellent target for scammers, because scammers are counting on the fact that when their scam has been discovered by the elderly person is not going to report it, so they can continue going on and moving on to the next victim. So on that, although not really a part of this topic, but this is all the more reason that you need to reassure your parents and your loved ones who are elderly that, you're not going to judge them, that if they feel they've done something that maybe they shouldn't have, or they're questioning, that they should feel free to come to you, because that's going to stop a lot of these scammers in their tracks. So we've talked about why seniors are often targets of scammers. So let's talk about some of the 5 most common scams targeting senior citizens today. Now, granted, there's a lot more than these 5, but these are the 5 most common. First, we have the charity scams. Essentially, what this is the scammers pose as a charity, and they ask the senior citizen to sign up, to donate money. And yes, impersonating a charity is a serious offense. And scammers who do this tend to operate for short periods of time, because they know that, they're going to get caught if they continue doing this for a lengthy period of time on here. But essentially, they may send mailings asking for individuals to send in money. So you really need to be cautious about, receiving unsolicited mail requesting money, or a phone call. My favorite that happened to me when I was in law school was somebody called up impersonating, granted, I was not an elderly person at the time, but they called up impersonating a sheriff's deputy, saying that the sheriffs were collecting money for teddy bears and wanting my credit card. And I was like, oh, I mean, it didn't sound right that they would be doing this, but then it was like, oh, it's the sheriff. Are they going to like come and arrest me if I don't give money? Or am I going to be on some list where they're going to be targeting me, watching to see if I speed? Luckily, I did not fall for that. And I later found out that that was truly a scam that was going on in the area where my law school was. But that's just an example of how the charity scams can be perpetuated against the seniors. So if you receive mail from a charity that you do not recognize, that you've never heard of, don't give money to them. Always contact the charity directly if you want to give money to that specific charity. But most importantly, before you do that, research the charity. One, you want to make sure the money, it's a valid charity, so it should be registered as a nonprofit. It also should, in addition, use the most of the money for the charitable purposes, because unfortunately a lot of the charities out there, folks, use the money that you give them to pay the salaries of their employees, and a very teeny tiny small percentage actually goes to the charity. Next, another favorite scam that scammers like to use, and this is a horrible one. They like to impersonate loved ones. It starts like this: the ringing of the phone. The elderly person will pick up the phone, and a person on the other end says, "Grandma, is that you? It's your, grandson, Mikey." And grandma's like, doesn't really sound like Mikey, but but obviously it must be my grandson, Mikey. So she plays along because she's not going to admit that she doesn't think this is her grandson, Mikey. Well, Mikey proceeds, after having a little chat with grandma about how she's doing, and usually gives some type of sob story where Mikey needs money. Mikey has been arrested and needs money for bail, or Mikey got mugged and needs money wired to him. So of course, grandma, being a good grandma, sends the money to Mikey. Well, guess what, folks? Mikey, yes, there probably is a grandson, Mikey, but this is not Mikey on the phone. This is a scammer who has researched grandma and knows that grandma has a grandson named Mikey. And now grandson Mikey doesn't have any money because grandson Mikey didn't ask for the money, but guess who has the money? Yes, the scammer. That's who has the money. So you have to be cautious. And this also can occur through email as well. And I know I've gotten emails from quote unquote, well, from the real friends of mine, but, who say I'm in Morocco and I'm being held hostage and I need you to send money. Well, I'm like, and it comes from my friend's email. And then I have to call my friend and say, hey, you've been hacked because someone is, impersonating you and requesting money. So just be on the lookout for that. And if your loved one needs money, what you need to do is tell them that you will call them back in a few minutes, because you'll have their cell phone number. So you can hang up the phone and then you can call your grandson, Mikey, and say, hey, Mikey, I understand you need some money. And Mikey will say, Grandma, I don't know what you're talking about. And then you've been scammed. So it's just better to be cautious. And I hate to say it, but you almost have to be distrustful and suspicious when you get those type of phone calls when anyone is asking you for money. Next, we have the technology scams. Now, as we mentioned, unlike this younger generation, like my niece and nephew, they do not know a world without computers. When they were born, laptops were already out. Everybody had a computer. And so they are very proficient in trolling through the internet and understanding, what to click on, what not to click on. Well, a lot of elderly people who did not grow up in the computer age and they've had to adapt and learn how to use computers, they're not as savvy. And so a lot of times these scammers will perpetuate technology scams, and it usually starts, sometimes you'll get this. Yeah, that alarm? Yeah. This is what can happen. You'll be at your computer and you'll all of a sudden get a huge alarm going off. You may get your computer screen that pops up that says virus. I know it's happened to me. It's happened to some elderly family members of mine. And what it says is you need to call this 1-800 or a 188 number, 1887 number, whatever, to get this virus removed. So of course the elderly person who's freaking out because of all the sirens and all of a sudden they have a virus, and everybody knows viruses are bad on computers. So the elderly person calls that number. And what happens? The person on the other hand says, we can fix that virus. We just need a credit card. So the elderly person, of course, gets their credit card and they say, oh, we also need to remote into your computer so that we can remove the virus. So the elderly person allows them to remote into the computer. So now the scammer has their credit card. The scammer also has access to their computer that has all of their personal information on it. So in that time when they're on the computer with the elderly person watching, they are essentially stealing all of the information. And meanwhile, most likely they have a partner who is busy charging up a storm on that credit card. Another scam is you might have somebody who actually calls the elderly person directly and says, hey, I'm from, let's say Microsoft, saying that, you have a problem. We've discovered that there is a problem with our system on computers and we need to help you fix that issue. Well, of course, the elderly person's like, oh, how nice of Microsoft to call me to alert me of the problem. And so what do? They, provide their credit card information to this individual claiming to be from Microsoft. And again, they may allow them to remote into the computer. And sometimes the scammers will actually lock the computer, which means the elderly person can't get into their computer. And it's otherwise known as ransomware, where in order to get access to their computer, the elderly person has to pay a large sum of money. And of course, it's going to be by a credit card, folks, because they're not going to accept a personal check. And sometimes the computer gets unlocked, but most likely it's not going to get unlocked. And the scammers now have your credit card and they are going to be running charges immediately on that credit card until it's maxed out. So beware of any technological scams that may be out there. And this is a sad one. Medicare and health insurance, unfortunately, have a lot of scams that are perpetuated on their behalf. Not that they're, going around scamming people, but people call and pretend to be they're calling on behalf of Medicare or calling on behalf of specific health insurance plans because they know that these plans are very confusing. I'm an attorney and I don't really understand the Medicare plans myself. And so a lot of elderly people are also in the same boat where it's not their field. They did not, practice medicine or were not involved in the medical field. So the whole world of Medicare and health insurance is novel. So now we have this helpful person who's called them and says, hey, I would love to sign you up for your Medicare plan or for a new health insurance plan. All I need is a credit card to get started. Well, and the elderly person's thinking, well, how nice, they're reaching out to me. So again, very trusting, like they give the credit card, the scammer takes that credit card and runs up a sizable amount of debt. Folks, Medicare and health insurance companies, one, they're most likely not going to call you directly. And two, if they do call you directly, they're not going to ask you for your credit card or financial information. They're going to call to schedule an appointment or to tell you about their plans and then tell you how you can follow up. So if you get one of those phone calls and you're not sure if it's legit or not, ask them for a number to call them back on. Tell them, you know what, someone's at the door, you know, if you'll give me your number, I'll call you right back. I guarantee you that 9 times out of 10, they're either not going to give you a number or you're going to call them back and that number doesn't exist. So just be on the lookout for these Medicare and health insurance scams. Another one, the reverse mortgage scams. Wow. A lot of seniors, find themselves in, facing financial uncertainty. My experience has been with my clients. It doesn't matter how wealthy they are always afraid that they are going to outlive their money and they're not going to have enough money to take care of them. So they own their own home, most likely, and they either don't have a mortgage or they have a very, small mortgage. And these scammers, not all reverse mortgage, I should start out, are scams, okay? But a lot of scammers will attach on to that fear of the elderly that they're not going to have enough money. And so they'll contact these homeowners and they'll be like, hey, I've got it, are you worried about, rising cost of healthcare? The person goes, yeah, you know what? I actually am. And then the scammer goes on and says, hey, are you concerned that you may not be able to pay for assisted living or nursing home care? And of course, the senior citizens thinking, because they've already had friends that have gone through this or perhaps family members, and they're like, you know what? I really am. So the scammer says, I have a great solution for you. You can take out a reverse mortgage on your home. And guess what? You can then live on the equity of that home and you don't have to pay anything. Well, what they don't tell them, and this is why this is a scam, is that there is a very high interest rate on that mortgage. They also don't tell them that if they take out the mortgage, but their spouse does not, when they die, their spouse no longer gets to stay in the home because the reverse mortgage company is going to foreclose on them. Very sad. So you just have to be cautious. I personally am not a fan of reverse mortgages in general, but if you are considering a reverse mortgage, I would definitely recommend that you initiate that conversation by reaching out to a trusted mortgage professional or your local bank to talk about legitimate reverse mortgages. Let's talk about the steps you can take to prevent these scams. 1, I can't stress it enough. Do not give out personal information to strangers. If somebody calls you and asks for your social security number, your birth date, your address, your family members, any type of information such as this, do not give it to them. People are not going to call you. Legitimate people are not going to call you for your personal information. For instance, we do a lot of real estate closings and we need people's social security numbers. Well, we always tell the people, to call us. We don't call them and ask them for their social security number. Instead, we tell them, hey, we're going to need your social security number to complete this closing transaction. So you need to call us and provide us with that number. And that way they know it's legit because they've called, I've responded that Schweitzer and Associates. They're like, okay, it's a legitimate business. So if someone does, is requesting personal information from you, hang up the call. If you don't want to hang up the call because you think it's rude, and some people do, then again, ask them for a phone number to call them back on. And if they call saying it's your bank, you know the number for your bank, folks. So call your bank and ask it, are you calling to get my personal information? And on that same token, do not respond. This is my best to completely alleviate this problem. Just don't respond to any unknown phone calls or emails. We have voicemail for a reason, folks. We have caller ID now. And I've always been, I tell people, even on my cell phone, I'm like, I'm going to tell you right now, if I do not recognize your number, I am not going to answer my cell phone. You need to leave a message and then I'll call you back. So if it's an unknown phone call, if you've got caller ID on your cell phone or on your landline and you're like, I don't know who this is, don't answer it. If you don't have caller ID and the phone's ringing, don't answer it. Let it go to voicemail, because you can always pick up the phone, believe it or not, when someone first starts speaking on voicemail, and if you recognize it. Same with emails. If you do not recognize the sender of an email, folks, it's okay to delete it. Trust me, it's better to be safe than sorry. And especially do not click on links and emails. We'll all be typing and we'll get an email. And sometimes, one of our friends' emails may have been hacked, or it could be a business that we have heard of and maybe we, worked with in the past. And, it'll say, please click on this link to verify your account. Please don't, folks. It's not legit. Your bank is not going to send you a link asking you to click on the link to verify your account. Now, unless, however, you have initiated, like you're setting up an online account, and then the bank immediately asks you to verify that online account that you've accepted. But a lot of times banks and credit card companies, they're not really, they're the fake banks and credit card companies, they're the scammers, will send out these links pretending to be your bank or credit card saying that, oh, we need you to verify your information. Please click this link. Well, if you click that link, you've now given them access onto your computer and or received a virus on your computer. So just don't click on any links and emails. It's better to be safe than sorry. Next, credit reports. You know how we talked about having good credit reports? You need to check your credit reports on a regular basis. I don't care how old you are. You're allowed to have one free credit report every year from annualcreditreports.com. Please get a copy of your credit card report, review it, make sure you recognize all the accounts on there. Make sure you recognize all the names that are on there. Essentially, if you see any errors, then you need to immediately call that credit reporting agency to advise them of the errors, and they'll walk you through the steps of what you can do. The same, not on here, but credit card statements. Make sure you review your statement every month, whether you receive your statement via the mail or via email, because you want to make sure all those charges on that statement are yours. And what you want to be on the lookout is, a lot of times the scammer will get your credit card number and they will make a 99-cent charge. And maybe they'll make another tiny little charge. And then if you don't do anything, then the next thing they're going to do is make a very large charge on your credit card. So if you see those little 99-cent or 1-cent charges on your credit card, call your credit card company. It's better to report a suspicion and be wrong than to just say, oh, it's probably just an oversight. You can't be too careful, folks. Also, I would recommend setting up direct deposit. Have your paychecks deposited directly into your bank account. On that same token, I would also recommend that you have your bills sent to you electronically as opposed through the mail, because yes, somebody could theoretically hack into your email account and get access to that information, but they're less likely to do that than if you have the information coming to you via the mail, because all they have to do, folks, is open up that mail and then they can have access to your account. They can just walk by, open up your mailbox, take out your mail, sort through it, grab the credit card information or any other documents I think will have financial information. They throw the other items back in the mailbox and they take those items and walk on. And if you think it doesn't happen, folks, I got news for you. It does. Thank goodness we have Ring doorbells that have kind of captured some of this, but it's just my recommendation is you may want to think about going electronically and definitely having, your paychecks directly deposited to you as opposed to mailed to you. And on that same token, hear that? Get a shredder, folks. We need to shred, shred, shred all of our personal documents. Do not just, we all get junk mail, like it, love it, hate it on here. The credit card offers. We also get, some of us still get our credit card statements or bank statements in the mail. When you're done with those, or if you don't feel like opening those, for instance, I never open up junk mail because I just don't have time for that. And I know I know it's junk mail, so why waste my time? Feed it through the shredder. Don't just throw it in the trash can. And don't just rip it in half and throw it in the trash can, because some of those little scammers, they're actually going to go through your trash, folks. Ew, gross. I know, but they will go through your trash and they will take those unopened credit card offers that you received and they will take advantage of those offers. They'll call the company pretending to be you and they will give them not your address for the statements to be sent, but either their address or a P.O. box. And in the meantime, they're racking up credit on that credit card, racking up debt rather on that credit card, which is going on your credit report, folks. And you're not receiving the statements, so you have no idea that debt's being racked up until, surprise, all of a sudden the credit card company calls you and says, you haven't been paying the $20,000 on your credit card on here. Usually it's a call from a collection agency, or you go to make a major purchase and they run your credit report and see this delinquent account. So you don't want that to happen to you. So make sure you get a shredder. So I do thank you so much for your time and attention today. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at K Mackintosh. That's KMACKINTOSH at nclegalcounsel.com, or you can contact me through our website at www.nclegalcounsel.com. I will always, I welcome questions on these webinars, and I do these every month. So tune in for next month. We're going to be talking about growing your estate plan. And I have on the screen here ways that you can contact us, our office address, as well as our office phone number and our website. So thank you so much for your time and attention today. And as I always say, stay happy. Okay, stop recording.